Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. She stood in the hallway holding her water bottle like a microphone. Eyes narrowed like I just insulted her ancestors. All I did was go in for a hug. A simple, tired, end-of-the-day kind of hug. Nothing grand. No music swelling in the background. Just arms. Mine. Reaching for hers. And that's when she said it. Don't touch me. I respect myself. Like I was trying to disrespect her by loving her. Like my touch had become something offensive. I didn't say anything. I just backed away like I always do. But something in my chest caved inward. You ever feel so embarrassed your own skin feels too loud? That night, I lay on the couch again. Second week in a row. She didn't ask why. Didn't say goodnight. Didn't look up from her glowing rectangle. Whatever was on her screen held more warmth than I did. But I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop hearing her voice saying those words over and over. It wasn't just a rejection. It was a declaration. She was making a statement that I no longer belonged. So the next morning, when she asked if I could help her move some boxes from the attic, I looked her dead in the eye, and I gave her words right back. Don't ask me. I respect myself. The silence that followed? It wasn't peaceful. She turned the same color as the raspberries in her breakfast bowl. And for the first time in months, she really looked at me. That's when I knew something had shifted. Not in her. In me. And once I started pulling at that thread, what unraveled next? Well, let's just say her little speech was only the beginning. The silence after I told her, "Don't ask me. I respect myself," didn't last long. Not in the literal sense. Clarette slammed the drawer shut like it owed her money, grabbed her keys and muttered, "Unbelievable," as she stormed out the door. But that wasn't the silence that got to me. No, what settled in afterward was a different kind. The kind that hangs over your shoulders even when you're alone. The kind that makes the air heavier in your own home. And the worst part? I felt guilty for standing up for myself, for giving her a taste of her own medicine. I spent the day pacing. Not because I was proud, but because my brain kept spiraling. Did I go too far? Should I have said it differently? Was I being petty or finally honest? But deep down, I knew something had been broken for a long time. I just hadn't allowed myself to look at the cracks. She didn't come home until after 10. No explanation. No message. Not even her usual passive-aggressive, "Don't wait up." When she finally walked in, her perfume was different. Sharper, like something expensive and unfamiliar. She looked surprised to see me still awake, sitting at the kitchen table. "Oh, you're still up?" she said like I was an unwanted guest who'd overstayed. "I live here," I replied, not angry, just stating a fact. She rolled her eyes, kicked off her shoes, and walked right past me without another word. That used to hurt, that kind of dismissal. But now, I just watched. Quietly, and that scared her more than anything. The next morning, her mood had flipped like a switch. She was making coffee, humming again, but now it was overdone. Sweet, syrupy, fake. I knew that version of her. It was the one she used when she needed something. "I was thinking we could have dinner together tonight," she said casually. "Maybe Thai? Your favorite." My favorite? She hadn't remembered what I liked in over a year. "Can't," I replied, not even looking up from my phone. "I have plans." She blinked. "With who? Does it matter?" I asked, finally meeting her eyes. She stared like she was trying to solve a math problem without numbers. "You're acting different," she said slowly. "No," I told her. "I'm acting like someone who respects himself." There it was again, her own words, reflected back like a mirror she didn't want to look into. And this time, I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen in months. Fear. Not because I was threatening, but because I wasn't chasing anymore. She wasn't in control. And without control, she wasn't sure who she was. But I was about to find out. Because later that week something happened. Something small, but revealing. Something that changed how I saw her. Not as a wife, but as a stranger who'd been living in my house, hiding behind smiles and silence. And what I discovered next was only the beginning. It wasn't some grand discovery. No lipstick on a collar. No hotel receipt. No text from a stranger. It was the mirror. That's what did it. The mirror in our bathroom, the one I used every morning to shave, the one she used every night to apply that layer of perfect indifference she wore like makeup. She left it smudged. Clarette never left smudges. Ever. She cleaned obsessively, like it gave her control over something in her life. Probably me. But this time there was a print. Not a handprint. A message. I don't know if it was the steam or just fate deciding I deserved a clue. But when I stepped out of the shower, it was there. In the fogged-up glass, ghost writing from someone else's finger. Last night was perfect. Not in my handwriting. Not in hers. I just stood there, towel half wrapped around me, staring at the words like they were etched in stone. Part of me thought it was a prank. Or that maybe I was losing it. Maybe I wrote it in a dream or something. But I hadn't even showered the night before. She had. And suddenly all those late nights, the new perfume, the fake sweetness, it all aligned. Like puzzle pieces I had refused to believe fit together. She was cheating on me. But it wasn't just that she'd found someone else. It was that she'd erased me so fully, she didn't even care if I saw it. I wasn't a threat. I wasn't a partner. I was just a shell she walked past each morning without noticing. Still, I didn't say anything. Not right away. Maybe I should have confronted her then and there. But honestly, I wanted to know more. I wanted confirmation. Something undeniable. Something I could hold in my hands and say, here, this is why everything hurts. So I started paying attention. Watching. Quietly. Like I didn't already know. I noticed how she always had her phone on silent now. How she carried it even into the bathroom. How she laughed harder at text messages than she ever did at anything I said. I watched her watch herself in the mirror, adjusting strands of hair she never bothered with before. And I played the part. I made her tea. I asked how her day was. I pretended to fall asleep on the couch just to see who she'd text when she thought I wasn't watching. She was sloppy. Arrogant, even. She had no idea the man she'd trained to stay silent had finally started listening. That he was taking notes. And then one night as I was closing up her laptop, the one she thought I never touched, I saw a file on the desktop she forgot to delete. It wasn't hidden in some secret folder. It wasn't even renamed. Just sitting there bold as brass. Photos hide. The mouse hovered over it like my finger already knew what I was about to find. I clicked, and what I saw nearly made me vomit. Not because it was graphic, though it was. Not because it was her with another man, though it absolutely was. But because he was smiling at me in one of the pictures. I knew him, and that changed everything. The man in the photo wasn't some stranger from her gym or a random coworker. It was Owen, my oldest friend. The guy who stood beside me at our wedding holding the rings. The one who used to crash on our couch after his breakups and call Clarette the sister he never had. And there he was, half-dressed, holding her waist, looking right into the camera with that smug grin. My heart didn't shatter all at once. Cracked in silence, piece by piece, like glass under pressure. The photo was dated 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. Meaning every night she told me she was working late. She was with him. Probably in some hotel, whispering the same excuses I'd believed for months. I stared at that picture until my eyes burned. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. They didn't even bother hiding it properly. They left it in plain sight, as if they thought I'd never have the backbone to look. That night, I sat at the kitchen table again. Same spot as before. But this time I wasn't thinking about what I'd done wrong. I was thinking about how long they'd been laughing at me behind my back. Every conversation replayed in my head like a cruel movie. Owen telling me I was lucky to have her. Clarette insisting I trust her friendships. Every word twisted now, poisoned with context I hadn't seen coming. Couldn't even cry. I just sat there, hands trembling, staring at my reflection in the window, wondering when exactly I'd become invisible. When she came home around midnight, she looked surprised to see me awake. "You're still up?" she asked casually, setting her purse down. I studied her face, looking for guilt, but she was calm, too calm. Her hair was slightly damp, her perfume stronger than usual. I asked, Rough night at work? She smiled faintly and said, exhausting. You have no idea. That line almost made me laugh. No idea? I had every idea. But I played along. For the first time, I wasn't the clueless husband. I was the one holding a secret. When she went to bed, I opened her phone. She'd always said she trusted me, so she never used a code. Her arrogance was a gift. The texts were right there. Pages of them. Jokes, inside comments, plans. Next time, we'll try his house. One message read. His house? No, my house. The next morning, I acted normal. I kissed her cheek before she left and told her to have a good day. She smiled like nothing was wrong. But that was the moment something inside me shifted. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't even going to confront her. I was going to let her think I was still blind, because I wanted to watch how far she'd go when she thought I'd never see. And by the time she realized what I knew, it would already be too late for her to fix anything. The next morning, I made her favorite breakfast. I don't know what got into me. Maybe I wanted to see how fake she could be with a full plate in front of her. Or maybe I just wanted to feel something, anything, other than humiliation. Pancakes, strawberries, and that overhyped vanilla syrup she used to obsess over. She walked into the kitchen and blinked like I'd grown another head. You cooked? She said cautiously. Felt like it? I replied, flipping the last pancake onto her plate. She sat down slowly, like she wasn't sure if she was walking into a trap or a surprise proposal. I watched her chew, eyes shifting between her food and my face, clearly trying to figure out what this was. You're being nice, she said, sipping her coffee. I smiled. I respect myself. Thought I'd start feeding myself better too. She froze just for a second, just enough for me to see it registered. I kept eating like nothing had happened. I needed her to keep thinking I was clueless. That was the game now. She left in a hurry, saying she had a meeting across town. I kissed her forehead on the way out, and as soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I called a locksmith, changed the locks, reset the garage code. I didn't even flinch. Then I called my bank, updated my passwords, froze our joint card, and reopened a private account I hadn't touched in years. I wasn't running. I was preparing. The final step? I booked a hotel. Not for me, for them. I knew they were planning to meet again. Her messages were clear. Thursday night, 8 p.m. Same spot, she'd texted him. They weren't exactly poets. That same spot was a little boutique hotel near the lake, one that charged more for mood lighting than for actual service. I reserved the room before she could, under my name, with my ID, and then I left something waiting on the bed. Just one thing, a framed wedding photo. Us, smiling, clueless, younger, and a printed note that read, "You earned this." Then I checked out and waited. Sure enough, Thursday night, she got dressed like she was going to a red carpet event. Tight dress, heels she hadn't worn in years, lipstick that didn't belong to our budget. She said something about a client dinner and kissed me like we were still in love. I even helped her with her coat. 2 hours later, I got the text from the hotel front desk. They'd found the note, saw the reaction, and called security after she threw the frame across the room and screamed at the man next to her. She hadn't even bothered to ask why her name wasn't on the reservation. By the time she got home, she was shaking. Her eyes were wide, mascara smudged. "Did you do this?" she asked, her voice brittle. I tilted my head. Do what? She didn't answer. She just stared at me like I'd become someone else. I hadn't. I was still the same man. But now I was done pretending. She didn't sleep that night. Not a second. I could hear her pacing the hallway, then the living room, then the hallway again. Back and forth like she was dragging chains. I stayed in bed, pretending to sleep, listening to the sound of her unraveling one silent footstep at a time. She was trying to figure out how much I knew, how long I'd known, whether I was bluffing or if I had more up my sleeve. The truth? I had nothing else. No grand plan, no exposé, just the knowledge of what she did and the weight of what it turned me into. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for clarity. I wanted to watch who she became now that the mirror wasn't fogged anymore. Around 6 a.m., she finally came into the bedroom. She didn't get into bed. She just stood there in the dark. I could feel her watching me, like she thought maybe I'd vanish if she stared long enough. I opened my eyes. "You knew," she said quietly. I sat up. What gave it away? The note or the silence? She flinched, like I'd slapped her with her own reflection. She sat down at the edge of the bed, but far from me, like I was something dangerous now. The irony. "Are you going to leave me?" she asked, voice brittle, trembling. I looked at her and realized something awful. She wasn't crying because she was sorry. She was crying because she was caught. Her world, her perfectly compartmentalized little life, was crumbling, and she didn't know which lie to reinforce first. "I'm not leaving yet," I said slowly. "I want to see how many more versions of yourself you'll try before you're honest." She said nothing, just wiped her face with the sleeve of the robe I bought her last Christmas. The same one she wore the morning she told me I was too soft and needed to be a man, when I asked if she still loved me. That memory hit me like a second betrayal. How long had she been building her escape route? How long had I been standing still, hoping she'd come back to a version of herself that didn't exist anymore? By the afternoon, she was in full damage control mode. She started doing laundry, cooking, and even suggested we go for a drive together. "Maybe clear the air," she said with a weak smile. I agreed. I needed to see what her endgame was. We drove for 30 minutes in near silence until she finally spoke. "It wasn't about love. Not really. I just felt invisible. You stopped paying attention." I laughed, which startled her. I didn't mean to, but it came out sharp and bitter. "You felt invisible?" I was living in a ghost house, Clarette. I was begging for scraps of attention. You just turned me into wallpaper and blamed the color. She turned to look at me. "So what now? You want to punish me?" I shook my head. "No. I want to see what your truth looks like when you're not performing." She didn't reply. She just looked out the window. I saw her jaw tense, and for the first time since this entire thing began, I saw her mask fall off completely. She wasn't confused. She wasn't broken. She was cold. And in that moment, I knew she wasn't sorry. She never would be. Not for cheating. Not for lying. Not for erasing me while I stood right beside her. The only thing she regretted was that I had finally stood up. 2 days after the hotel incident, she left a handwritten note on the kitchen counter. I hadn't seen her write anything by hand in years. It was always text messages or emails, cold and efficient. But this? A crumpled little piece of notepad paper, torn on the side and stained with what I can only guess was coffee. It said, "I want to fix this. Please meet me at 6. No location. No explanation. Just that. I almost threw it out. Almost. But curiosity is a nasty drug. At 5:55, I got in the car and waited. At exactly 6 o'clock, she texted me the address. Some overpriced restaurant downtown we hadn't been to since our 3rd anniversary. She picked the place where we once slow danced under fairy lights after everyone else left. Where we promised we'd always be honest. The irony almost made me choke. I walked in, and there she was, already seated, hair curled, glass of wine in hand like nothing had happened. When she saw me, she stood up like she was auditioning for forgiveness. "You came," she said, eyes wide, voice soft. I sat down. "You said you wanted to fix this, so fix it." She didn't speak right away, just stared at me like she was trying to figure out which version of herself I might still believe in. Then came the monologue. She said she was confused, that she felt neglected, that it wasn't about love or lust or even Owen. "It could have been anyone," she said, like that made it better. I watched her talk, hands fluttering, voice trembling at all the right moments. If I didn't know better, I might have thought she was being honest. But then she said something that snapped the whole performance in half. "I was going to end it," she whispered. "The night you found out. I was going to tell him it was over." I raised an eyebrow. "The night I booked the hotel room under my name and left a framed photo of our wedding on the bed?" She froze. Her mouth stayed slightly open, like she was waiting for a line that never came. Funny timing, I said, leaning back in my chair, because your text to him that same morning said, "Can't wait for tonight. Bring the red one." Her face drained of color. She wasn't sorry. She was trapped. The only reason she invited me here was to try and write a version of the story where she looked less like the villain. She thought I'd be desperate enough to take whatever crumbs she tossed my way. And maybe a few months ago I would have. But not now. I stood up, left a $10 bill on the table and said, "This dinner's the last performance. I'm done clapping." She called after me, but I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I'd seen everything I needed. Back home, I pulled out the file I'd started building. Screenshots, copies, a detailed timeline. I wasn't going to use it out of spite. I was going to use it to leave clean. No drama, no yelling, no begging. Just the truth, delivered plainly and signed at the bottom. The next morning, I left her the one thing she never expected. A lawyer's business card, face down, on the same counter where she left her note. She didn't scream when she found the card. No tears, no dramatic gasps, just silence. The kind that says, "I thought I'd always have control." I watched her read the name of the attorney twice, like maybe it would change if she looked hard enough. Then she walked out of the kitchen, and we didn't speak for the rest of the day. I'd expected her to argue, to throw guilt at me like a hailstorm, but instead, she grew cold, distant, mechanical, and efficient. In some twisted way, I think she respected me more in that moment than she ever had while we were together. Because now she knew I had boundaries, that I wouldn't play the fool again. Within 2 weeks, she'd moved out. No hugs. No "let's talk." No apologies that weren't soaked in manipulation. We met with the attorney once. Short, simple, and emotionless. Everything divided down the middle. No fighting over plates or books or the coffee table we never used. Just signatures and silence. When she left the room, she didn't say goodbye. And that was okay, because I didn't need closure from her. I found it myself in the days that followed. In the quiet mornings when I brewed my own coffee and actually tasted it. In the evenings when I played old records I'd once put away because she said they depressed the room. In texts from friends I hadn't seen in years. People who told me I looked lighter, like something had finally unclenched inside me. I won't pretend like it didn't hurt. It did. Losing her was painful. But losing myself had been far worse. And I finally stopped doing that. I started walking again, literally and metaphorically. Started journaling, sleeping better, laughing again, sometimes for no reason at all. Funny thing is, I don't even hate her. I just understand now. Some people love you in a way that feels like erasure. Slowly, silently, they overwrite your needs with their own. They call it compromise, but what they really mean is obedience. And I gave her that until I didn't. Now, I'm still figuring out who I am when I'm not shrinking to make someone else feel taller. But I like this version of me better. He's quieter, smarter, still wounded, but healing with clarity instead of denial. And if she ever looks back, I hope she sees it clearly too. Not for my sake, but for her own. Thanks for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever walked away from something that no longer saw your worth, drop your story in the comments. Or tell us the most unexpected moment when everything finally made sense. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell, because more real stories are coming soon, only on Reddit Confessions.